Hey guys, and welcome to the new episode of Full Throttle. As you can see, it's cold as fuck out here, but we're doing the videos because that's what we gotta do. And today we'll show you the brand new Mercedes E-Class, which is really just a facelift. But of course the car is actually very good, and today we'll try to answer the big question: is this the best car in this luxury car segment? So let's check out how this Mercedes E-Class it's like to drive. Now, this is extremely popular among taxis, Ubers, personal transportation and many other things because it's one of the most comfortable and easiest car to transport people with in complete luxury and quietness and comfort. And the same rule applies if you buy the car yourself. This is not a sports car by any means, and Mercedes knows that. Instead, they're focusing on the calmness, on the quietness and the softness of the experience, and I think they've done a tremendous job. Compared to a BMW 5 Series, this car has a much softer suspension, which is definitely noticeable around town or when you go over road imperfections. And if you're tired of BMW M suspension, which is always bumpy, here you'll find a very different type of car. But at the same time, this Mercedes E-Class is not all soft and wobbly. Actually, I was quite surprised how well it's put on the road and how stable it is when you go high speed in the bends. Even though it's a diesel, and this is pretty much the worst engine choice by the media in 2022, the reality is that this is the most popular engine for this car, and there is a good reason for it. Actually, here we have the second diesel, which is the 300D, which has 265 horsepower, but it's also a 4-cylinder. It feels reasonably quick, it has a bit of a turbo lag, which is expected, but once it gets going, it's actually pretty brisk. It does 0 to 60 in 6.4 seconds, which is reasonable for a car like this, and people buying a diesel E-Class are definitely not looking for a lot of sports thrills. If you want something a little bit more exciting, you should definitely look into the AMG models. But here you'll find tremendous fuel economy, and this car can definitely do 6 liters per 100 kilometers outside of town, which is impressive for a big and heavy car like this. And something else that I have to mention is that the car is actually surprisingly quiet. You have a 9G automatic transmission, which also does a very good job of being on the right gear all the time, and you won't even notice it shifting the gears. Overall, everything about the E-Class is a very pleasant experience. It's quiet, it's comfortable, and now you have an electric start system, which means that you can start the car without even the engine running, which makes you forget that you're even in a diesel. You hear no diesel noise whatsoever, and when you accelerate, there is a bit of a roar, which is actually quite pleasant, and you feel like you're in a car that actually has some performance. Overall, I think Mercedes has done a very good job creating a perfect family and long-distance car. But of course, if you're going to buy this E-Class, make sure that you're not looking for a lot of driving dynamics or any joy from driving, because if you're looking for that, you'll be better off in a BMW 5 Series. But everything else, this E-Class does perfect, and it's very hard to fault. So let's see how fast this Mercedes is from 0 to 60. We have a 4-cylinder diesel engine, which is not the most exciting one, but let's check it out. It's supposed to be 6.5 seconds, so we have no launch control, so we do it manually. And it's definitely not the most exciting experience, but it does have some performance. Let's talk about the changes during the facelift. As you can see, the car has an entire new front with new headlights, a grille and a bit of a sportier looking front. Now honestly, I think the car looked better before the facelift, which is the case with many new Mercedes models. The headlights are too small right now, the grille is too big, and overall I just don't like the proportions. The previous model looked a bit more elegant and a bit more like a Mercedes should look. But still, the changes here are mostly cosmetic, and the car is pretty much the same as the one before the facelift. So the side of this Mercedes E-Class is barely changed from the model before the facelift, and you have a hard time to tell which is which. But the car still does look like every other Mercedes limousine. It's black, it has these chrome elements, and it definitely doesn't have the most interesting profile, but it does the job. So the rear of the E-Class is the most drastically changed part of the car, and it's the part I like the most. The last version had these rear tail lights which didn't look as good. Now we have these sleek new LED modern ones which are a bit like the one of the S-Class, and I think they give the car a much more modern look. We also have exhaust tips which are part of the AMG pack, but of course they are fake, but that's something expected from Mercedes, so I won't even bother with it. So I know it's a 4-cylinder diesel, but we do have to make the sound check. Now we won't be filming the exhaust because they're not real, but let's see what this baby can do. It's a perfect vacuum cleaner. Wow, the sound of the diesel, something that is going to go extinct pretty soon and we're all going to miss. Now under the hood we have a 2-liter 4-cylinder diesel engine with 265 horsepower. Now this is the second diesel. We have a 200D which only has 200 horsepower, and I think this is the sweet spot. Great fuel economy and of course all the tax benefits you can get from a small engine. The new generation of the E-Class will only have 4-cylinder engines, but here you can still get a V8 if you opt for the AMG version. And another pretty interesting one is the diesel hybrid, which is the 300DE, which combines this exact engine with an electric power plant. So the interior of this E-Class remains mainly unchanged from the facelift, but this is good news because I think that's one of the most stylish and luxurious cabins on the market. We have this beautiful layout with this long wood trim and those metal climate vents which aren't really metal, but they do look very good. Unlike the new C and S Class, we don't have the Tesla-like setup with the screens, and here we have the old setup with the 2 back-to-back screens, which is a bit old school now, and I don't like the fact that most of the space is actually blank and you only have 2 small screens and a lot of unused real estate. We also have the old center console, which is getting a bit old now, and we have physical buttons, which is crazy in 2022 because nobody uses physical buttons anymore. But those are actually very handy to use and you know where everything is, which is good news. And of course the biggest change here is the new steering wheel which you get on the new models. I think it looks awesome, it feels very good in your hands, it's a bit big and the buttons are a bit intimidating because you have about 100 of them and everything does something different. But overall the materials are perfect and what you'd expect from a Mercedes like this, so if you don't mind that you don't have the latest and most high-tech cabin, I think the interior of the E-Class is pretty much one of the best in the class. There is plenty of room in the back seats of this E-Class, which is the main reason why this car is so popular as a taxi or as a personal transportation vehicle. The knee room and the headroom are also pretty good, and the only problem is that the tunnel here is quite tall, so there isn't that much space for a third person. But for 2 tall people the car is perfect and you have everything you're going to need for a big and comfortable family car. So the new E-Class continues to be the most comfortable and luxurious way to travel from point A to point B without any problems whatsoever. And yes, the car is not exactly the most fun or the sportiest by any definition, but if you're not looking for that, but for something for transportation in complete serenity and calmness, the new E-Class is just for you.